Anyways, we already had those two guys yesterday, but I'm going to represent them because apparently I'm mixed up and there is apparently two people by the same name working on Eternity, and that's amazing. Georgi Spasov, apparently there's two of them. So I read the credentials of the other one, so I'll represent him. He's a blockchain architect and a consultant for developers. The both of the guys work in LimeChain. The other one is still a mobile phone enthusiast developer, right? So that was correct apparently, but they have nothing to do with Elixir, so sorry for that. Anyways, they're going to be talking about æproject for Streamlined apps development. Georgi Spasov and Hristiyan Georgiev. So round of applause for them. Woo. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this extremely correct introduction.
Oh, yeah, it was amazing.
Let me see what's going on here. Does it work? Yeah, that's working. All right, guys. Yeah, so we are back. Who's here on our lecture yesterday? Show of hands. Okay, couple of people. Woo! Yeah. Obviously, you're bound to if there is no other track. But I guess that you guys just like us. This is why you're here. And we're going to be speaking about aeternity, formerly known as 4JE, the so-called Swiss Army knife of the Eternity project development. So what's going on in here? First of all, who's working on that? Well, it depends. So, who the community thinks? Well, this is what the community probably thinks. However, what we actually are and what we do is mostly this and this. And yeah, this is our daily job here. By the way, this is who the core developers thinks we are. So, but they're not far from the truth. And how did it all started? Well, it all started when we got into the Eternity community and we tried to start a project and actually figure out that there is only the SDK and there is also a CLI with the SDK, and things like running your own unit tests and creating your own streamlined deployment process, running your own node are pretty much up to you to figure out how to do it. Of course, the team has done a great job. You were able to run like Docker images, stuff like this. But yeah, it was not ideal. You had to learn and relearn a lot of things. If you wanted the latest version of the node, you had to compile it yourself. And yeah, we have had an experience with our networks of actually providing and creating tools that were actually streamlining these processes. So these Swiss Army knife tools we have already had experience building. So yeah, it only came natural that we actually build this. And we started all of this with some things in mind. First of all, that it was hard, but it shouldn't be. And second of all, that we actually have some pillars. So they are actually just two pillars. First of all, we have to be rock solid. It has to provide stability, so we should not be breaking. We should try as much as possible to provide a stable interface so that people actually can trust us. This is super, super, super important in our volatile technology because people need to be tackling their business problems. They don't need to be tackling the tooling. They don't need to be tackling the network. They need to be tackling their business problems. And until they actually have free capacity to tackle their business problems, and until this capacity is occupied with the fighting the technology itself, we're going to be doomed. But now we are actually getting to the stage that people are more and more tackling their business problems and less the technology, which shows our progression. And we set up from the beginning to be one of these pillars, one of these projects that are providing stability in the development world for the people and for the developers. Second thing, documentation. Well, we try very, very, very hard to be always up to date with our documentation. All of us that have used all our toolings knows that there is like a chain of things that happens, so it sometimes causes you to not be able to be always up to date, but we have always developed with documentation in mind. Literally, this is even in our code review process. I mean, if you're submitting a new feature or doing a change that has some impact, you also have to submit the documentation changes in your pull request. So what can it do for you? And I will actually hand over to Chris because he can tell you much better than me.
Oh, thank you, George. And
You want this?
hi everybody. So yeah, as far as we already know, a project is contract development framework, which allows you, every developer to easily start with the blockchain over its commands. And I'm gonna quickly show you and walk you through some of the commands, so you can, yeah, take some brief introduction of it. So apparently you should initialize your project. So we use a project init for it, and what it does, it creates entire project structure with some directories inside, and it creates also configuration files for the node, so you don't have to care about it. It also has additional parameter update. So if the SDK or the node updates, you should just run a project init update, and then this is gonna update all your versions of the SDK in the node. Then you have the node, obviously. So you should just type a project node, and this is gonna run your local network together with the compiler. But there's additional parameter -- only. So if you want to run your local compiler, you should do this, and then it's gonna only spawn the 3 nodes, and that's it. At the end of the execution of this command, it's gonna be walked on the console 10 predefined wallets with their addresses and their balances, and these are gonna be used later on the test units. And there's additional parameters here as well. So you have compiler port, so you can define on which port you would like to start your compiler if you have some. And there's additional parameters for Windows user like --Windows. So you could run the aEproject node on Windows machine. Then you have aEproject compile, which obviously compiles your contract, and at the end of the execution, just logs on the console your bytecode, or apparently if it has been mistaken, it's gonna be printed the error. Then we have aEproject test. By default, it's gonna be run on the root directory on the test folder, and it's gonna run your test, and you have additional parameter path, so you can specify where the aEproject should look for your test if you have any other idea where to put them. And there is global wallets array available, which I talked a little bit of it before, and it has the structure of public-private key, so you can use it to test your smart contracts. aEproject deploys your contract, and by default it deploys the contract on the local node, but there are 3 predefined networks that we implemented. So if you just type aEproject deploy --n, like for network or just network, and then testnet is going to be deployed on the testnet or mainnet, so it does what it says. And there's additional parameters for it as well, like secret key. So you can specify from which account you should deploy your contract. Then you have compiler, so you can specify which compiler should you use if you are not okay with the default one which we are using. And then there's additional parameter path, so you can specify from which folder the command should start. Then you have aEproject history, which apparently shows you brief information about your deployed contracts, and a couple of other information like the gas used for the transaction hash, contract address, and many stuff, other stuff like the event time and others. And there's aEproject shape, which provides ready-to-use application with predefined framework integrated on aEproject over the æternity network. And we built 3 shapes for, in my opinion, most commonly used front-end frameworks: Vue, React, and Angular. And let's see some of the comments. So I'm gonna show some videos.
So if you didn't remember all of these, First of all, there is documentation. Second of all, you're going to see them, how they actually work.
So yeah, basically we're gonna start from scratch. We are just creating some folder, get into it, and now yeah, I have a project in it. It's gonna initialize your project, create some folders. Apparently it's pretty slow because it's downloading and installing some stuff. So I'm gonna skip that. It's pretty informational, so you can see what's going on with it. And now we have the entire project structure, like with example for the contracts, deployment script, and something like that. So yeah, everything is set up for you and make it pretty easy. So if you're not blockchain developer, it's pretty easy to start up. No, sorry.
This is video.
Yeah.
These are videos, but you can see the videos there.
Then you have the node. So yeah, you should have Docker installed previously. So yeah, you should. Then you have to start the node. And as we can see, no images before that. We're starting the node. Starting. And starting. And yeah, as you can see, there's the wallets that you can see in your test and information about that. And then a project stopped and I stopped just, yeah, never mind. Then this is the compiling and the bytecode when everything's go okay. And now I'm gonna show you how it's gonna be if you're a monkey like us, as George said previously. Now we're gonna test it.
Probably the thing that is used the most in a project, the unit testing.
Correct. Yeah, that's it. Deploy the contract. Now I'm deploying on the tested, so I'm showing you how you can use just the command.
By the way, this is all on the testnet, so this is
Yeah.
live.
So yeah, it's done. So this contract has been deployed on the testnet, and if you don't believe me, you can check it. Now the history. So we're gonna see some informational stuff. By the way, here is also additional parameter, which is limit. So apparently you can specify the number of the historical data you would get. And yeah, here I'm showing the network ID. So this is displaying where the contract has been deployed. And some other stuff like the status, the gas price, who has been the executor, the address of who has deployed the contract, and many more. So it's pretty nice. And then this is a shape. This is probably the last one. So here we are downloading 3 repositories. So this should be very slow because I'm gonna skip it. And this is for the sake of the example, I'm using æproject shape Angular. So apparently I chose to use Angular for that. And it's gonna do boilerplate to do up. So you can show how it has been integrated in the æproject.
Can we pause for a second? How many of you do know what shape is? How many of you don't know what shape is? All right.
Okay.
Shape is a part of a project that actually allows you to not only start a project that is just smart contracts and unit tests, but also includes a client-side application. And you can specify currently one of 3 different technologies for that, which are the 3 most popular web technology: Angular, React, and Vue, which is when you run the shape, you're going to see we have not only the smart contracts in the unit test, we also have a client-side application that is already integrated, so you can start your own fully fledged project there.
This is the project structure of the shape. It's kind of init function, but yeah, for the shape. So these are all the directories we are gonna use and need for that. And this is already on the browser. So we have in identity provider and the application itself.
So this is the sample application.
So those little pop-ups over here are for the identity provider, just to identify that this is actually the address that is trying to be connected to the local host. So yeah, and yeah, we just created a record on the blockchain. Apparently still not, but anytime soon. Yep. Let's go back to the presentation. So there's some more commands that we have and we plan to do. So aeternity contracts, as we saw yesterday, it's online ID, but we decided to integrate it in the aeternity as well. It's actually deprecated, so no new features are expected on that. Instead, you should use the playground. But here, it is also well supported, so it supports all the latest versions of the node and the SDK, so you can use it if you like it. And the other one is export config, which shows you basic configuration of the wallet, the nodes, and the wallets that we have been predefined before. And actually, that was from me. George, you should maybe continue for what the future holds.
All right. Yeah. Let's see what the future holds there. For those of you that haven't been here yesterday, we have applied for a grant, and we're going to showcase you some parts of this grant here as things that we want to integrate with AE projects so that we have a better future together. First of all, we want to create a DAO shape because those are all the craze currently, and everyone should be able to create DAO and Eternity. And hopefully, we're going to have some great business models that are built on Eternity. We are also going to integrate the transaction inspector in a project so that you can inspect transactions that are run on your A project node. Two major things. With the enormous help of the core team and Nikita, there has been negotiations, and apparently, there is going to be auto mining, very lightweight node that is going to be perfectly suitable for running your unit tests. What's the problem currently is, well, when you have a fully fledged application with more than 200 tests, it can take you hours to actually run them against the current setup of the node, because the current setup of the node is actually full real nodes in a network with each other. This is not ideal during development because you don't want to realize that you have a problem hour after that and then make a fix and then wait 1 more hour until you figure out and you see whether you have fixed it actually. And second thing, you always should have full coverage on your unit tests. So you're always bound to have a lot of unit tests that are there. So this is something that is going to be super important for the speed of development over Eternity. And second thing, we are going to be providing this first of all as a CLI part of 4J, and second of all as graphical user interface where you can visually just tweak around the node itself. Yeah, pretty much this is it. So we are looking forward to the work of the core dev team, and as soon as it's out, we are going to be introducing this into a project. Second thing, something that I personally have been craving ever since I started working with Sophia. I wanted to have a way to actually base my smart contracts on used code, on code that hopefully has been viewed by a lot of eyes and has been reviewed by a lot of eyes, and why not even audited by a lot of eyes. And because there is no inheritance in Sophia currently, as we spoke yesterday, the second best thing that we decided is good idea to do is actually to create a contract injector first, and second of all, standard library-ish thing, a repository of community sourced code smart contracts. And the idea is through this injector for you to be able to specify, hey, I want to inject this contract into my contract, and this injector is going to merge them together. And this is now going to do stuff like, my favorite example is ownable. It shouldn't be like access restriction of who's the owner of this smart contract shouldn't be coded by every developer that is there. You could just say, hey, inject me ownable, and it's just going to do the modifications in the init function, in the state, and add some more function there. And this is like a step forward towards community-governed smart contracts, common, trusted, audited library of smart contracts. I think this is something that's going to go a long way for bonding our community of developers, and I think it's going to go a long way for improving the security of our smart contracts, and also save time, which means speed. You're going to be focusing, as I said previously, more on tackling your business problem than on tooling and drawing and writing mundane code. So yeah, pretty much this is what a project is. Hopefully you're going to be using it from now on if you haven't. And there is a picture of a cat to make you more kind to us when you're asking questions.
Thank you. Right.
Go.
Thank you. Right. So who has the first question, guys? Come on. Oh, okay. Excellent. We have a question. Right.
I like the concept of shapes. How entangled are they right now, and what would be the best way if people want to contribute new shapes?
Shapes are separate repositories. And they just follow, I mean, a project shape literally does git clone. So if I'm not mistaken, you can actually specify a project shape with a repository, and this is going to allow you to actually start a new project that is coming out of your repo. What's important, and maybe this is a good point to make an AEX on it, is that you have to have a specific structure in order for this to work correctly under a project. Thank you for this question.
Any more? Any more questions from the top? We have a lot of new people in the room, so...
The cat is working. The cat is working.
No, yep, we have one here. It's working, definitely. Yeah.
So regarding the fast mining, so there is support in the core already for one thing, turning off and on mining, so that this is used in the test suites in the core system, so that when we need some blocks to be mined, we call the node and tell it to mine a little bit, and we use normally the fast miner, and then there is the ultra fast, which we use in the state channel, where we actually mock some strategic functions, and mining is basically just super fast, immediate. So are those the things that you were intending on using? Basically spinning like a Docker image, so you could just
exactly. What I have been told is that these are things that the core developers are already using, having in place, and with very little modifications, probably in just CI pipelines, we're going to be able to actually have one more Docker image that is for this super fast auto mining, ultra fast node, as you said, that we can actually just spawn and throw our code against it, and then we can actually have the newest versions also create one such Docker. So yeah, the same thing.
We have one more.
Thanks for the cat.
Of course, my pleasure.
So this week or the previous week, I was having a hands-on on let's say setup and the network setup, and was testing a contract with a single node. So do you have your custom setup for the network, or do you use this Eternity local net repository?
I am stoked that you asked this, and I am sorry that Dinshu just left, but we are using the Docker images that are provided by the Eternity team.
Yeah, so the local net repository. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Because we've been, I was crunching with Dicho to update it to use only a single instance of a node rather than a network of 3 nodes.
Yeah, if you open up the Docker compose file when you try a new a project, you'll see that there are 3 nodes coming from these specific Docker versions that are getting connected together and having a network.
Yeah, right. But just for playing with a smart contract, I don't need a network of 3 nodes.
I think what you're looking for is maybe the thing that we just previously spoke about.
There is a small disagreement there. You can continue on that in a
Yeah.
couple of hours. Any more questions? Right. I think the guys deserve a really big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.